This pay-per-view, though. This pay-per-view, man. I've never been so bored in my entire life. I actually fell asleep watching this pay-per-view while my friends were watching it. I fell asleep watching this pay-per-view. It wasn't because it was bad. Because the card wasn't bad, but compared to other Hell in a Cell cards, this was the worst. It's just that every single match on the card, except for one, was a WrestleMania rematch. So we knew the matches themselves were going to be good because the wrestlers that actually were wrestling had good chemistry. So I can't really say the wrestling was bad, and I'm not going to say that. But I am going to say that it was boring. 100% boring. There was one match that had stakes. And then there was a finish that I found interesting. But everything else existed. I never thought that I would say that a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view existed. That shows how low it has gone down. That shows how little credibility that this pay-per-view has. This pay-per-view has very little credibility now. I never thought I would say that. But it's true. There's only one match that I found interesting because it has stakes. And that's the main event. With Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre. That match in itself had more stakes to it. It was very interesting. That if Bobby Lashley won, then Drew McIntyre could no longer go after the title as long as he has it. So there was a reason why Hell in a Cell was happening. And there was a reason, there was stakes behind it why Drew had to fight. And the chemistry was actually pretty good. The match itself was actually pretty good. That was the only pay-per-view that had stakes. But I will definitely say this. When it came to the match of Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley, that match was intriguing towards the end. Because Rhea actually did what Charlotte did. And when she said the very end, she was like, "Congratulations, bitch, you're learning." And I'm like, okay. I'm intrigued to see where this goes. Because it looks like that they're going to turn Rhea Ripley heel. And I want to see how far she will go as a heel. Because in my opinion, she could be an anti-hero. Not so much a heel. Not a full-fledged, 100% full-blown heel. But that ending in itself was interesting. Everything else just existed. And that's really sad coming from an actual women's Hell in a Cell match that had Bianca Belair and Bayley in it. A feud that was long dead. And for some reason, that feud was a Hell in a Cell match. Why? I don't know. What were you trying to kill? Nothing, because the feud was already dead. It meant nothing at all. Yet it was a Hell in a Cell match. Then you had Seth Rollins versus Cesaro. A match I didn't really care about, but the match itself was pretty good because we know these two actually do have chemistry. So everything on this pay-per-view existed. Shayna Baszler and Alexa Bliss should have never happened. Or at least been like Randy Orton. All mysticism and voodoo. And I never really thought I wanted a gimmick to die so quickly than Alexa Bliss's gimmick. I don't even know what she's supposed to be. When I thought she was Twisted Bliss, I was really interested seeing her next to The Fiend. Because it would be nice to have a dynamic, demonic duo. I guess you call that. I don't know what it's supposed to be. But the fact that you had The Fiend and Alexa Bliss tag teaming together was interesting. But now it's to the point where she took over and is practically losing its edge. It's done. It's dead now. And you have Shayna Baszler, who should have been on her own a long time ago, lose to Alexa Bliss via Twisted Bliss. Yeah, this pay-per-view just existed. I can't even give it a rating. I really can't. You can't give it an average rating. You can't make it neutral. You can't make it anything. This is not even average. This is existing. And even when it comes to the kickoff, I could care less about that because, well, Natalya never needed to win, but Natalya has to have the win because it's Natalya. And of course, she had to beat Mandy Rose, who was losing more and more cred by the day. So yeah, sure. This pay-per-view, I can't even say it was stupid. It just existed. So that shows how far the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, or even the match itself, is dropped. This match should have been reserved only for Survivor Series as a feud killer. It should have stayed that way. Make it in a pay-per-view, just turned it into a gimmick, and now it lost all of its cred. And honestly, I've never been so bored watching a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view like I have tonight. I'm speechless. I don't know what else to say, and there's really nothing more to say. But I am curious to hear y'all thoughts about any of this, because I'm not going to lie, this was the most draining pay-per-view I ever watched, because it was that boring. And it was boring because it was just not interesting. There was only one match on the whole freaking card that had stakes. Everything else just existed. That's piss poor, y'all. That is piss poor for something as good as Hell in a Cell, or at least what it should have been. That is piss poor. Let me know in the comments how y'all feel about this pay-per-view. I'm out.